We're going to get started with the second panel, so please do join us. All right, I'm excited to welcome our next crew to the stage. First, I'll introduce our moderator, and then he will introduce the rest of the panelists. Our moderator is the co-founder and host of Demo Day, and as well as the host of the Venture Daily podcast. So please welcome to the stage Jackson Fordyce and the panelists. Yes, come on. Jackson will introduce you all.
Yeah, come on up, y'all. Come on up.
Thank you, guys. And please enjoy the next panel.
Yeah, thank you, Garrett.
Every panel has to have a weird person, and at least here you don't have to guess.
We have a great list of guests this evening. We have a RoboCop on the far left here. Woo! Just kidding. That's Dan. Dan, want to give a little background about your company and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Dan. I'm Ukrainian. I live here in Austin. I'm co-founder and CEO of NEWHOMESMATE. That's the marketplace for new construction homes. That's on the mission to solve housing shortage and affordability crisis here in the U.S.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Marvin, love to introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Marvin. So I'm actually normally based in San Francisco, which is the world's most expensive third world city. Been in tech for about 25 years, so did the startup thing, was a big tech exec at Yahoo doing international expansion. I was a partner at 500 startups when they were good, and then I ran a gaming holding company for about 2 years, split between Germany and Ukraine and the US. And now I'm a VC again. So I run a small fund called Diaspora that invests in European pre-seed founders, focusing on the US market. And I also have a holding company that does a lot of LP checks and also investing in stuff that I feel like investing.
An investor, hardest job in the world. Thank you for your service. Yeah. Vlad, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, I'm Vlad. I'm founder and CTO of Claid.AI and Let's Enhance. So what we do is we build an AI creative studio for e-commerce. And we're doing it for 5 years already. In my LinkedIn headline, I did Gen AI before it was cool. So, and it's actually true. So we are doing it like for 5 years. We're building products in this niche using genuine generative AI.
Thank you, Vlad. And last, and absolutely the best, Vera, please, would love to intro yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vera. I'm Ukrainian, and I came here from Kyiv. I had to take like 2 trains and 2 flights to get here. In total, it's like 2 days trip, but it's actually worth it because I enjoy like spring in Austin, like blossom trees, like it's and all these chatty birds. I enjoy it so much. Yeah. And I work in MacPaw, and actually today is my 15th anniversary. It's happened.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. And
15 years.
Yeah, I wonder what he's doing. His VR. So.
Yeah. I'm recording. Well, I see everything, guys.
So you're recording us, yeah.
Yeah, it's a social experiment. First of all, I'm trying to figure out if I want like drop down, like after using that through the panel. And second, I'm curious how that will look like on the recording after we finish.
Yeah. Watch him. And I'm a CTO of MacPaw, so let's start.
Well, glad all of y'all are here this afternoon. Glad y'all are here as well. We're going to have a great conversation about AI, VR, some regulation topics. We're going to go deeper into the App Store and other topics like that. So we'll first start off with a question for the group. Marvin, we'll start with you, and everyone else can answer this question. AI and VR are significantly transforming the field of software development, both in how software is created and the functionalities it can offer. Specifically, how do you see AI and VR redefining software development, and what impact have they had on shaping product development strategies? We'll start with you, Marvin, and then we'll move on.
That's a long question. So 2 very, very different things, right? So, on the AI side, I actually am of the school of thought that AI is going to transform everything, but not from a consumer perspective, but really more from a B2B perspective. And so I actually think that it's going to be the incumbents that actually benefit, not necessarily startups. And so the point about this, right? Like take a look at what's been happening with Meta. In previous sort of waves of technology, it's always been startups, right? Like this is talking about the next big wave of AI. But actually, just this so different this time with the technology, because the reality is that most technology usually eats people and eats jobs, right? And I think you're seeing this actually happen. This is, I think, the dirty secret in most of big tech right now, is they're firing people because, not just because these people are lazy and not doing anything, they're firing people because a lot of these jobs are being replaced by a lot of the software that's actually being written, right? So for example, you saw recently, Klarna just released the fact that they've used like AI to work on customer service, where it's equivalent to 70 customer service jobs. Think about how that's going to be replicated across most white-collar sort of like basic work. And so stuff like that, like how software is being written, I remember reading this article back like 10 years ago in Wired about like, oh, programmers are the new sort of coal miners. I didn't understand it at that time. And now like fast forward like 10 years, they're like, actually, it's kind of true. And so you're always going to need programmers, you're always going to need developers. But the reality is that I think the bar is so much higher now. And so AI is going to be, it's almost like chess, right? Like right now, if you have a player without being sort of augmented with sort of the computer, they'll actually lose against a computer, right? But if you actually see somebody who's actually a great chess player augmented with augmented with a computer, they're really, really good now. And so they're able to beat just a computer by itself. And so I think what's happening is the bar is actually being rising for most, like if you're a marketer, you're done, unless like you're in the top 5 or 10 percentile. If you're a programmer, if you're not top 5 or 10 percentile, you're done because of these tools, these enhancements, right? Like it's kind of like the new, at least that's how I look at it.
Vera, how do you see AI in VR redefining software development?
Yeah, I want to add to Marvin about like this threat of losing job. It's actually happening. I agree with you, but based on research, like, it creates a job, like even more jobs. So let's see how it will go, because like more and more people needed to, train these models, like control them and so on and so forth. Talking about AI, I focus on AI also, and like it's maybe one of the biggest tech revolution I've seen in my lifetime, and I like support it, enjoy it, and like don't support this idea that like humanity is destined and like it's all will end. And AI transformed like our lifestyle and like software development and software we see, because it's not LLMs, large language model. They can understand what people need, understand like their request, their prompt, but then they need to do something. And as today, they are great in generating your like instruction and explanations, or like some funny images to share. But I like when something is useful, because not just for fun. And here it comes this agents idea. Maybe some of us like heard about it. This need of lots of agents. It's like a piece of like software, piece of function, some service. This understanding machine, like large language model, could like just trigger and to react on some action. And in my opinion, it's how like most of the software should kind of transform, and it's like an opportunity for them. Not just have your, let's say, application or website or web service. You need to provide this kind of functions, because like every application, it's in its core is just a set of like small function, and then you just cover it with some UI and like any additional like stuff. And I see it's like a huge opportunities and like need to change for each software developer to think about your application as a set of functions and how it could be triggered by all this new way for users to interact with technology. I mean, like LLM. Yeah.
Can I make a point too?
Please.
Sorry to dominate, but just one of the things I've been thinking about over the last sort of like 6 to 9 months is how this completely changes sort of like how startups and actually how companies are actually being built. And so if you think back, I'm sorry to talk like an old man, right? But like if you look back in 1999, when I was first doing startups, you actually had to raise like $5 million to actually build a startup, right? Because like we didn't have the hardware. You had to go buy the hardware. There weren't the distribution tools, right? You fast forward like 2008, 2009, the cost of actually starting a startup went down to like $500,000 to $1 million, right? Because of just like SaaS, you have the distribution tools. And I think this is something that we're actually missing now. But if you take a look at all the SaaS products, all the cloud services, all the distribution tools, the AI tools that are actually available now, the reality is that it's becoming easier and easier to do a startup, and the cost structure has actually gone down now. So this actually changes how startups are being made. This actually changes how VC is actually being done. So you actually don't need to raise like $5 million unless you're doing deep tech or you're doing like raising $1 million, $2 million to do deep tech. But for almost every other kind of startup, you raise like 50 to 100K. Right? Like because of the cost structure has gone down dramatically. And so the only difference now is your ability as an entrepreneur to sort of understand the market and your ability actually to almost project manage and partner manage like resources, right? And software and people, where I think we're fast approaching a time like 5 to 10 years from now, you will have hundreds of like 1 to 3 person companies worth $1 billion, right? Because they can use a lot of this software, a lot of these AI tools, even some amount of outsourcing. And so just to finish off, there's this guy, his name is David Cummings from Atlanta. He sold a company called Pardo, and he coined this phrase called the forever lean startup, where it's just like you can just have these like tiny companies that are doing like 20, 30, 40 million dollars in revenue every single year with like 5 or 6 people. Like you're going to see more of that. That's exciting.
And so I was going to, based off that, do you think startups will raise less and less money in the next 5 or 10 years than they need to, like right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what will VCs have to provide to these startups, letting them know, like,
look, most VCs are useless, right? Like, let's be frank. Like, most VCs don't really add that much value. It's just money. And so at the end of the day, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have deep tech. VCs are going to go back to doing what they're really, really good at, the deep tech, the hard tech stuff, right? And yes, you can still fund these like small things. So a small fund like mine can actually do these small, because you can still return. But for most institutional VCs, I think that they're trapped in the rock and the hard place. And so I do think things like defense tech, things like hard tech, things like biotech, where you actually need big slugs of money, you'll start seeing more of that. And I think that's a good thing.
Vlad, what potential do you see for AI and VR in creating more immersive and engaging software applications?
Yeah, sure. So, like I'm in AI for many years, and also I have to admit I'm a bit biased because I'm also based in San Francisco, which is like an epicenter right now for all of these things happening. And so AI is, I think that AI is actually changing everything right now, bit by bit. And VR, speaking about VR, so people have been doing VR for quite some years, but right now what's happening is a very big deal because Apple stepped in and they released a device, which is amazing. It's like a little bit useless, I would say, but it's still amazing. Because, so it's still amazing. So I view it like more like a conceptual device. So Apple unveiled like a set of ideas in this device. And I view it as an engineer, right? So I'm looking at the device, okay, it has this set of sensors, APIs, cameras, everything. So what can I do with it, right? And if we connect AI to this part, like the possibilities are just huge, like except for some, like maybe some very obvious use cases come to mind from entertainment industry. But apart from that, so, I mean, so AI can actually, like, we have all this like LLMs, we have multimodal models which can interpret not only text but also visual information, and we'll also have a special information in this device. And we can actually, if compute allows us, we're not quite there yet, but I think like from the research perspective, we are already there. So we can just take what we see right now in Apple Vision Pro and just overlay it with like hints about the surrounding world and just explanations of the surrounding world. And if we add something which I'm working on, which is like visual generative AI, generating images, videos, and you can actually like put this stuff on top using the mixed reality features of Apple Vision Pro, and you can do a lot with that, right? So possibilities are just huge there. So it's like one of the things which we build. I really like this kind of features. I call it like reimagining the image, right? With new diffusion models. So you can take existing image and you can kind of redraw it and something. So one idea I had, for example, like if you have your room and you want like a new design in your apartment, you can actually like, regenerate it in another design and you can like fix it. It's just like one idea out of like millions of ideas, what can be done.
Dan, can you share how AI has been improving or shaping your real estate services, and more specifically, how AI has served as a catalyst for growth in this sector?
Yeah, sure. Like, first of all, we were talking about the evolvement of AI and VR, and I just like, I thought, like when I was in the middle school, I would just like be in the computer all the time, or just like sometimes in front of the TV, and like my grandma would always tell me like, get farther from computer, or just like sit, the perfect distance is like this, or don't sit so close to the TV, and like, look at me now, grandma, and I just think like that in general, everything that happens with AI and also with spatial computing is helping us to erase that bridge or that gap between reality and technology. Because like if you think of the spatial computing right now, like pretty much everything that we can see like through the technology seems pretty much like the same quality, and it's really hard to see the difference sometimes. And the same with AI. Like you can correspond with the machine, but then it's really hard to tell if that is a machine or a human, and that's happening more and more often right now. In terms of the real estate, like specifically what we are doing, one of the biggest challenges are that when people are buying a home, especially first-time home buyers, there's a huge asymmetry of information. So it feels like you know less than everyone else, but at the same time, you have the most to lose, because like everyone else kind of like making money on you, and you're taking the mortgage for 30 years, and then you're just like, you're messed up, if something is wrong. And people have to go through the huge learning curve while preparing for the transaction. And right now, everything has to be done personally, right? Because that's the biggest investment that you do in your lifetime, and you want to go there, you want to see everything, you want to touch, you want to talk to the person who will be responsible, etc. And you're dealing with several processes that are really complicated. And the way how we use like artificial intelligence in that process, that we're basically having a lot of data that never been online, and we use AI and machine learning to make it more like convertible, digestible, and in general better, so that people can make a decision when they're looking at some data using our product. And when we talk about spatial computing, like one of the big challenges, like can I see the place where I will live before I will buy it? Or can I make it from the distance, like while I'm in California, can I look at some homes in Austin and then make a decision? And the issue is that before now, that gap between people expectations and the state of the technology was so big that, like even if you used something, the quality was really bad, and it still had to have you like engage personally in the process, go somewhere, talk to people. But right now, there is a really big chance that that can change, and that people can start buying homes from the comfort of their couch, and do it differently. And I think that, in general, that may increase or improve the way how people move, how people find the place where they live, and bring a lot of additional positive change in the United States and in the world globally.
Vera, you mentioned earlier agents, and so I'm wondering, with OpenAI's recent initiatives in automating device operations and tasks, what impact might this have on the future direction of the software industry?
Yeah, this recent news from OpenAI was quite like a news for me, and like OpenAI is a company producing like huge changes almost like each week, and this one was one more. Big change, and I'm interested in the approach to this and how they can what it will be the architecture of this, and how will they, especially about business model, because as for now, current business model is you create an app or let's say the service, and just people, let's say, download it to your mobile device or your laptop, and that's it. And software developer can communicate directly with their customer. And what OpenAI offer is a completely different model, because you create just this agent, just this pure function. Let's say you have some archiver or some converter from PDF to something, whatever format. And actually for these use cases, you don't need a downloadable application. It's too much. And it could be done like a small agent, and just, let's say ChatGPT just triggers it, and it gets executed, and what will be the business model behind this, because software developers need to support need to earn money from this. It's not just about providing these agents from free, and they were not clear about it. How we will pay, what will be the model behind this. But I see the future in this because it's for me, for some software, not big software let's say Final Cut or Photoshop or something like that, it's too much to download it to your computer, and maybe it's too much because of security reasons to download some scary binary to your let's say laptop. Why should you do this if you can just use more universal interface of ChatGPT and other large language models provide us? So I see the future in this. Yeah.
I want to transition to talking about the Digital Markets Act and regulation, and this question's for the group. The DMA in Europe is one of the latest examples of expansive tech regulation impacting the industry. How do you perceive its impact? Do you see similar regulations coming about in the US and other countries? Marvin, we'll start with you first.
Maybe it's sort of the old libertarian in me, where I just think you've seen that joke. It's US innovates, right? China duplicates, Europe regulates. It's kind of true. I actually think this is actually a really bad thing for Europe in general, because this is an issue in the US as well too, right? You have regulators who actually don't really understand technology, don't really understand the landscape in general. And so this is what I worry about, how do you regulate something you don't really understand, right? It goes back to sort of, I remember back in 2020, remember when they had brought Mark Zuckerberg in front of the Congress, and and they didn't even understand the business model, right? They're how do you make money? It's we make money from ads. It's, and that's what I worry about, particularly for something like AI, especially when we're sort of in this AI race, right? So I kind of get what Europe is doing. The only thing that's actually going to do is actually going to force a lot of that talent. All that talent will actually end up over here.
Okay.
This is my opinion. I could be wrong, but I just think it's all going to end up over here, because they're going to be wow, this is a pain in the ass. I'm restricted in sort of what I can do over here. And the US market's just way bigger.
Right. Dan, do you agree with Marvin on that?
Yeah, sort of I just have a slightly different perspective to that part of the issue, because in real estate, pretty much United States is in the forefront of the regulation when everything comes to the housing and everything else. And we've just been talking about that recently, that with all of the changes that right now are happening in terms of the cookies policy and Google Chrome tracking prevention, all of that stuff happened in real estate years ago. So to be precise, there's Fair Housing Act, that basically the bill that regulates discrimination and segregation when it comes to the housing, was released in 1966, but only in 2019 and 2020, Google and Facebook adopted it. And that basically made it impossible for any real estate company that deals with the housing use any such things as the gender, race, age, income, or preferences for the targeting. And that's the issue that everyone dealt with. At the end of the day, do I think it's good or bad? I think it's bad. It was bad for some companies at the beginning, right? Because a lot of companies, they lost a lot of revenue. But at the end of the day, that's really better for the consumers, because everyone got the access to the better quality of the data and a better experience when it comes to the housing. And I think that at the end of the day, considering that we all are in this together, that made companies innovate more. And I think that's what happens with regulation, that sometimes it, you think of that as, oh my God, that's just the worst thing that could happen to our industry. But then you start to innovate and you discover new opportunities that were a lot better than something that we had before, right? So it's like a two-edged sword, right? Something like this.
Vlad, in your opinion, do you think we'll see similar regulations like in Europe in the United States?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the regulations itself, but what we will see just maybe upcoming weeks is this antitrust legislation going on against Apple, like collected for multiple years of evidence. We will see a certain effect on Apple. So generally, like I kind of share the libertarian kind of motives here, but like overall, the regulation which is proposed in the EU, like usually they're pretty bit like unwieldy, and it could be also like the negative part. What I think like the positive thing about it is like I'm always in like for creating more competition and just giving more like tools to generate revenue streams for companies, which is like a positive thing. But I'm not sure about the regulation itself. We are not building apps right now, but if we would build an app, I can imagine like it would be easier for us if we would have like an alternative to App Store probably. But we will see. But as for regulation, yeah, like I mean, we just need to watch the news like over upcoming weeks, and yeah, something will come out of it.
You mentioned the Apple antitrust lawsuit. Do you have any predictions on what will happen with that?
I'm not a huge expert in that. Sorry, like I don't really have predictions, but it will have some consequences. I know they were able to fight off certain things, allegations, but we will see. We will see where it unfolds. Maybe it could be a little bit similar to what was happening with like in the 90s with Internet Explorer and the Microsoft. So maybe it would be similar to that, but I'm not quite sure.
I actually think there's 2 points. I think number one, we need to watch it very carefully, right? Because Apple has been in a lawsuit with Epic for a while, right? Because Epic's trying to sort of open this up. And what is happening is actually it's very, very clear that Apple is a complete monopoly in this area, right? Where they're shutting down, and anyone who's actually done an app, right, trying to sort of launch an app on the Apple App Store, where it's like the whole process is super opaque. You don't really know sort of like how long it's going to take. It could be a month. It actually could be a year, just sort of like back and forth. And so I do think that lack of transparency, and I also think the biggest issue that they have right now is just they're minting so much money from this now, and Apple's become so calcified, where it's very, very clear, like many of the big apps who are just like, yeah, we don't want to do business with it anymore. We're going to, anything we do in the app is going to be free, right? Because I don't want to give it my 30% of revenue. So I'm just going to basically push people to sort of like the mobile sort of like website, right? Or push you to sort of like somewhere else versus sort of the actual app, because like you don't want to give up that margin. And so I think they're going to have a huge issue with that, because bigger companies don't need them, slowly don't need them anymore.
Do you think alternative app stores can be deemed safe for new users compared to? I
actually worry less about sort of like whether they're going to be safe. The biggest thing is actually, can you overcome consumer laziness? Right? Where it's like, I know Apple App Store, or I know the Google Play Store. I'm so used to that right now. So like, why do I need to go somewhere else? We've just trained the consumers to just go to do this, and also they're so integrated into their products, right? Whether it's a Pixel phone or it's the iPhone. Consumers are lazy, right? Like I'm a consumer, we're all lazy, so you have to really, really hate the thing to go do something new. Right? So maybe the nerds and geeks might do that, but that's a very small portion of the population. And we don't have an ecosystem like China, where there's lots of these sort of like hard forks of sort of Android, right? There's many, many different players over there with many different phone players. That isn't the situation here in the US. So I question whether that's going to happen.
Vera, how do you think the Digital Markets Act in the EU and more broadly other tech regulations will impact distribution methods of products on digital platforms?
Yeah, thank you. And I want to continue from Marvin's about like these app stores and like people are really lazy. I agree with that. And actually, what is happening in Europe, it's like on 7th of March, just like a couple of days ago, it's come into action, and Apple and other like 5 companies, which were called like gatekeepers, because they like called like monopolists from some digital markets, they had to like do some actions. It's not just about Apple, like Meta and like other Alphabet, other huge companies that controls like search engines, app stores, like even YouTube is like currently in EU is considered like a product, like a digital market that should be regulated to allow more other players. And as for our company, it's like a huge deal because for us it's opened like opportunity with our like setup subscription-based store to like create eventually alternative to the App Store for iOS. But it's still, it will have, we are in a beta right now, and just in around a month, it will be released, and we'll see how like users will react, will they like download it. But it's still, it's not just like alternative to App Store. It's not the same because you can provide like a different approach to App Stores. Let's say, like as for us, you can get like all the apps for just one subscription, and you will see less of marketing inside these apps. And more innovation could be.
You have beautiful eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, reality is so much better.
There you can continue.
Yeah. And you can see like more and more innovation in field of distribution of software, how you just business models behind this and like support like rating systems. So they give you more and more freedom, and users will benefit from this. But what we see is from this initial stage how Apple implemented this. It's not that like easy to be a player, because as a company you need to be huge, you need to have like money, you need to be
well, it's a marketing problem,
yeah,
right? It's basically a marketing and distribution and awareness issue, and ultimately I think this is why it's very, very hard to sort of become much more mainstream. Everyone's just so used to the tool, right? It's embedded already in the product that they're buying. It's so hard to.
Yeah, but I hope they will be pushed more and more, like let's say with default web browser, like. They have pre-installed, but in EU they forced Apple to, like at first launch, show just on iOS you need to pick what you want to use, Safari or Chrome or any other browser. So I hope they will show like similar, at least alerts. Okay, here's App Store, but yeah, you have alternative. Just you can use this on that, and I hope European Union will continue like this. This policy, and we'll see like similar changes in US, because it's not just about like it's like useful regulation, because it's true that we have only one like app store and one player on the market, and like developers, businesses, and users just they are losing something because of this. So I hope US will join this regulation. Yeah.
Marvin, who do you think the real winners are when it comes to regulation, not even just with the DMA, but regulation in general in tech in the United States?
It's the big players, right? Because they have the money to basically navigate and manage this. It's not the small startups in general. And so, this is my opinion, right? Like, I do think the big difference of the incumbents now, unlike 15, 20 years ago, when it's like HP or these like companies that become very big, they become big, dumb, and slow, right? That's actually not the case. Maybe Google will be the examples. They're becoming big, dumb, and slow, but like that's not the case for Meta. That's not the case for really any of the other sort of like companies. Microsoft is a ferocious competitor. And so this is the first time where you're looking at all the major sort of like big tech companies. They're incredibly competitive right now, unlike before. At least this is sort of like, maybe that'll change. Google probably will change, right? Like the reality, I'd question whether Sundar is going to still be CEO by the end of the year.
Wow.
And you see them as winners from this?
Huh?
And you see them, like big tech, as winners from regulation?
They have lots of money, super competitive, and also a lot of the tech companies, the way they're structured is that they have, the dual sort of like it is actually very, very important. So many of the founders actually have like high voting shares, so they can't get kicked out by hedge funds and other folks. So they can make those like really, really hard changes. Like the workforce. Maybe your revenue will go down like 30%. Where in other cases you get fired, right? But because they have so much control, they can make a lot of the very, very hard changes because they own the company. Because of this dual sort of like class structure, and they're founder driven, right? So like they're willing to eat their own children. That is not the case in most of the time if you're a professional manager. So that's a big difference this time.
So Marvin thinks the big tech companies are the winners in regulation. Vlad, what do these regulations mean for small or medium-sized tech companies and independent developers?
Well, I'm somewhat optimistic on this one because it may enable some companies to actually publish their apps, which they was not able to publish before. For example, like there is a famous example of Hey App, right, from DHH, who they wanted to have like a little bit different business model than the one was proposed by Apple. They wanted to have like a different payment structure, and there was like a big deal. They made a big deal out of it, and I can understand that, right? I'm thinking about our product, right? So, and I would prefer to keep subscriptions like we have right now on our website, like using Stripe, etc. So, I mean, this may allow companies to build apps which they were not considering to build before, but we will see. And I can also agree, yeah, that App Store is sticky, but like honestly, I think App Store kind of sucks. And
it's terrible. I mean, they've done nothing.
Search is terrible. Like the promotion is just discovery is like non-useful, and I think that it will also force Apple to innovate on the App Store and make it better, and we will see. But it will bring like a lots of new dynamic to this already like established market, so people know how to promote their apps and how to like build this kind of App Store SEO kind of thing. So right now it will be changing when new app stores will be coming and will be gaining some mass, but it will take some time.
Dan, how has your business been impacted by recent changes in advertising cookie and app tracking policies implemented by Apple and Google? And what are some strategies you found successful for customer acquisition in spite of constantly changing rules?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So as I said, like with the previous one, that we kind of like got used to that, right? So some sort of regulation happens in real estate all the time. We always have to continue innovate, use other platforms. Specifically to what you said, we've been adopting customer data platforms a lot, just like, figuring out how do we can just like sideload some data, collect some data, just like analyze it differently to figure out how do we can deliver better value for the consumers. But at the end of the day, I think that also related to the previous question, right, that whatever happens with the regulation, whatever happens in general in the world, if you continue creating value for your users and for everyone else, you still will win. Right, and no regulation can change that. And even if we think of about the case that happened with Microsoft in the 90s around Internet Explorer, like in 2007, Apple released iPhone, and a lot of that stuff became like not really relevant, right? And even before and after that, it's also like Google Chrome achieved massive domination. Would they achieve it if there wasn't like a regulation around like Microsoft Explorer? Maybe, maybe not. But what they really did, they created a lot better product, right? And better products, they win users. And I think that if you continue focusing on a better user experience, not only how they use your product, but also how they discover it, like regulation is not that relevant after all.
Vera, what does user-friendly signify in your perspective, and how does it shape the software that you, MacPaw, develop or use, and what does the approach mean for business and for customers?
Like user-friendliness, like it's very like easy to understand idea. It's how it's easy to use your software. So like everything should be really easy to use. It's not something new. And like for MacPaw, it's like a part of our DNA because we like started from the love to Apple company, and like quality and simplicity is like their like biggest values. We kind of copy it at the beginning, and that's why we like value this simplicity. But in my opinion, like nowadays something needs to be added to this user friendliness, because like just ease of use it's not enough. As from the name, it's like user-friendly, so it's kind of a friend. So software you use, service you use should be your friend, not your enemy. And so your enemy like will steal your data, and your friend shouldn't be doing this. So this software, your friend software, should respect your data, respect your privacy, and be like a good player, be a good friend to you. So like in my perspective, it should be like a bigger meaning, not just ease of use. And like for us, it's like to breathe in air. It's some like very natural stuff to do, and because of this, our major product, CleanMac, is quite very old utility. It's like 15 years old, and when you have such old app, it's constantly add new and new features, and it can become really like cumbersome, and not that easy to use. But from the day one, we have this idea of like one button solution. So you can need just one button to like do whatever you want. And we call it from some time just scan, clean, done, just 3 steps, and you can like finish any task. And we spent a lot of like in development, our designers just think and how we can take this new functionality and put in this old, easy-to-use like paradigm, just scan, clean, done, and just not to show a user all this complexity of like new technology. Just it's our job to deal with it, and users should be faced only with like value and just click one button and receive the result. Yeah.
Marvin, what's your opinion on user friendliness?
So I'm not a product guy, but at the end of the day, I actually think that that's just table stakes now, right? Like we're so used to having sort of easy to use products, right? So an easy to use product is not like Salesforce, right? It's not like this garbage like Oracle or whatever, right? And so, I use the example of just sort of, if you want to take a look at sort of like big differences of sort of user-friendly versus not user-friendly, I use like a B2B example, but like Concur, right? I'm from Concur, I think they're owned by SAP or something, so it makes sense. Just garbage software. Spend like 6 or 7 hours working on your expense versus Expensify. It's like 15, 20 minutes. That's the big difference, right? It's just sort of like so easy, very intuitive to use, and you get what you want to do done very, very quickly. That's table stakes right now. Like 10 years ago, that was such a big deal. It's like, oh, look, it's so user-friendly. I actually think now, so I'm an investor, so I was looking at this company, and it's in consumer space. And super interesting concept. It's in the consumer area, really smart team. But you look at the product and you're like, this product sucks. I'm not investing in this company. If you can't even have a basic product, even at the pre-seed seed level, it's just like you have no chance. And so I think it's just sort of like bare minimum user-friendliness of just sort of, is this intuitive? Is this something that literally anybody can use, right? When I say anybody, like a 12-year-old, maybe that's not the best example, like my mom, like 70-year-old person can use this product. That's what I call user-friendliness.
Vlad, how do you balance the need for advanced features while maintaining a user-friendly interface in your software?
Yeah, so I more kind of want to comment on user friendliness in general, and then get back to advanced features. So I think I'm AI guy, right? So I think that AI is changing everything, right? Including user interfaces. So we have built machines which can accept instructions, like machine instructions, not human instructions. And we built all this like programming languages, APIs, layers of this stuff. But we are not talking right now in the programming language with you. Right. So and right now what we have is we can actually start to communicate with machine in our own natural language, like human language, and we can give it instructions, and it may follow instructions, and it may do something useful already, like even in this early stage. And this thing is progressing just, like the rate of progress is just unforeseeable. Like I mean, it's amazing. And so what I think is that apps of the future, like the topic of the panel, right? They will look like, basically it will be like a multimodal LLM controlling like a swarm of agents, which will actually be based on user input in a natural language and visual input as well. And so it's the future because it unlocks many possibilities, and we already see new UI patterns emerging, and we see all this like question-based help centers. It's just very, very first steps which we are making right now as an industry. So I think that's actually the future of apps, like this natural interface. And coming back to advanced features, right, you can invoke them via all these instructions. And again, like if you want, and of course you need to also change the UX patterns. So we are used to a certain set of UX patterns right now, which everyone understands, like a floppy disk or something like that for saving stuff. But I mean, all these UX patterns are also changing right now, and we will be developing new UX patterns to work with these AI tools. So that's my take.
Dan, to you as well. How do you balance the need for advanced features while maintaining a user-friendly interface in your software?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So in general, like I think that when we talk about user-friendly interface or user-friendly experience, it's about like when people are getting satisfaction not only from the end result of the product, when they're not just happy with what the product produced, but also when they were really happy and satisfied while using that. And that's like a completely different mindset, because like you typically try to optimize for the end result, but what about the whole experience? And like in real estate, once again, it's super critical, because like retention is relatively zero, right? People buy homes 13 years. The end result is massive. People live there and spend like most of their life, and they're hopefully really happy about that. But the process towards the home ownership is a pure hell. Like, I mean, it's terrible. Like, you struggle on every moment. You're really doubting the whole idea of the home ownership. You don't know why you're doing this. Is that in general like worth it? And there's like a lot of things that people go through, right? And unfortunately, the worst thing that many of those things we can't really impact with our interface. We can help people find a home, learn some general information, schedule a tour, maybe do a virtual tour, but then it comes to like, you know, interaction with the real person on like reviewing the contract, negotiating the price, etc. And when we do anything with our product, we are trying to take like the home buying experience, like the positive experience is our North Star, like how we can actually improve that. And lucky for us that it's really correlates with the conversion rate, because like if people are happy on every step of the transaction, they're more of them ending up buying something, right? And in our case, like, I mean, that's a lot of experiments all the time, like trying to figure out what's better, talking to customers, trying to measure the satisfaction from each given step. But at the end of the day, like I think what's really important in all of that is the dedication to that, like that you should be really committed to creating better experience and something that is significantly more user-friendly than alternatives, and focusing on that instead of like just, you know, the end result.
Thank you, Dan. That concludes my questions. Can we give a round of applause to our panelists, please? We're gonna move into a couple Q&A. So if you have any questions for the panelists, please raise your hand. I'll point you out, and then we can go from there. Yes, sir, in the back.
Volodymyr Berezhny, OBS Group. I have a question. As you know, a lot of innovation moving to Texas right now because their money here, people are moving here, so I think it's natural. So my question probably more to Marvin, because he might be most objective on this. After we win the war in Ukraine, how do we make Ukraine the epicenter of innovation in Europe? What we should do now, or maybe globally? Thank you. We have less resources, so it's more complicated.
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, look, I think Ukraine was already on the path even prior to the war of, you know, I spent most of 2021 actually in Kiev, and there was a very, very vibrant sort of group of folks. And so what I think is going to, this is my hypothesis, when the war is over, I actually think many of the tech people actually left, right? Most of them will go back. And I actually think they're going to bring back this whole sort of like network of people and communities from all around the world in general. I also have many, many friends who are going to build, like we're hiring like tech people actually in Ukraine right now still. And so it was already on that path in general. I do think one of the things that needs to happen is really the infrastructure stuff that has been put in. The Ministry of Digital sort of like innovation has been very, very good this last, even during the war, the progress they've actually made in general. But I do think it's just one of those things of just like, it's an awareness issue, I think, for most people. Like, people are aware, maybe not for the right reasons. And I think sort of once you kind of get exposure to sort of like really good tech people, like many of us who've been lucky enough to have been going there since 2007, once you kind of recognize that, you're like, oh, okay, great. Because there's actually quite a lot of companies that are actually Ukrainian companies that people don't know are Ukrainian companies, right? Like Grammarly is a Ukrainian company, right? Ring had like 500 people over there. Like there's many of these stories that just, it's a branding issue, in my opinion.
Dan, you now live in Texas. Do you want to give your opinion as well on this?
Yeah, I think that the first step is to help Ukraine win the war. That's like the first step towards making Ukraine a technological center and like innovation center. The second is probably just like let people do their thing. You know, like I think that most of the great technology advances and great companies that were created in Ukraine, they were created not because of something, but despite a lot of other things. And I'm sure that Alexander can prove like many of these points, but in general, like I think that it's the natural process that's happening in Ukraine. Ukraine will be successful. Ukrainian tech entrepreneurship will be also super successful. And that's also like, I think the very big reason why it's happening because like tech is probably the only industry that makes talent super global, that you're not basically stuck to certain geographical area. You can create anything and that can be used everywhere. And Ukraine, as well as like many other countries, has a lot of super brilliant people. And if you just like, you know, eliminate all of these barriers and all of that crazy stuff that is happening right now and let people create and be creative, it will happen itself. So I think that's just like a matter of time.
And I'd like to add to this that we shouldn't wait till the end of war because it's happening right now. And previous panel was all about that Ukrainian businesses are operational. And as I said, I stay in Kyiv and I like see it in my own eyes. Like cities like Kyiv is like almost the same as before the war, and new companies gets created as now I'm a mentor in Mission Possible program for startups. And like there are like 15 great like teams with great ideas, and it's life, and we create new companies and continue, and all once it's operational even now. And the same happens in Ukraine. This AI and change everything. So in my opinion, we shouldn't wait. It's happening. So Ukraine is alive. Yeah.
We have time for more questions, Garrett, or?
Hi. So we talked a lot about AI today, and we talked about helping Ukraine become a technological center of the world. We talked about amazing talent in Ukraine, and I very much agree with you, Marvin, that it's a branding question. So how do we use AI to accelerate all that, to accelerate the world knowing about Ukrainian amazing talent, about Ukraine becoming the technological center of the world? Thank you.
I could, like speaking about AI, as all of us know, it is like very biased, and like first step is to like teach AI and report these mistakes that it's like biased answer because of this huge propaganda. Like because yeah, it's not a human. It can like make a decision. It just like gets all this data and just trust it. And like from Russia, they just create massive amount of information, and this like let's say ChatGPT just learn from this and just give you a wrong information about Ukraine because they want to like rewrite the history. Maybe you know this like, stories about like Kyiv Rus, Kyievska Rus, Kyiv Rush, I don't know, that it's like from Russia, and it's not true, but ChatGPT can tell you different. So it's like the first step, help us to fix this bias and just report that it's not true. It's different answer.
Yeah. I can add to that. So we originally started in Ukraine, in Kyiv, like 5 or 6 years ago, and we like large portion of our team are Ukrainians, and some of them are located in Ukraine. We're still interviewing people from Ukraine right now. And I mean, it's just to showcase that actually AI stuff gets built in Ukraine because people we bootstrapped our company, and some other founders did so as well because it was possible to do. I mean, what we have right now, yeah, like, and also one of the facts is like if you study like the AI research history, actually, the first like deep neural network was technically built in Ukraine. So it was like 65 or something. They did not have NVIDIA GPUs back then, but they had like all this like perceptrons and stuff. So there's like a big school of this engineering, and everyone I talked to in the Bay Area, and everyone says, okay, everyone who worked with Ukrainians are saying like, this is like very high potential engineers there. Some very good engineers are coming from Ukraine, and it's like building on that brand and showing more like what Marvin also mentioned, like Ring and Grammarly. So I'm going around here on all these events and I'm telling people, okay, we have like Ring, we have Grammarly, and we have all of that. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, right there.
Thank you. So on the kind of overall country level, Ukraine has this amazing, I think Marvin mentioned, Department of Innovation, Ministry of Innovation, and I'm wondering what you think other countries like US could learn from apps, government apps, like the ones that Ukraine has, that in my opinion is probably unique in the whole world. In my opinion, government services that Ukraine provides through their apps and technology and digital transformation could be a great lesson for other countries like United States. And I'm wondering if you could speak more to that and how you think other countries could learn from the digital transformation that Ukraine as a government went through in the past few years.
I mean, I don't know if there's that much to learn. I'll tell you why. Because the biggest issue is the US, if you look at just pure infrastructure in general, pure laws, everything, it just stacks on top of each other, right? Versus say you look at the countries that have been very advanced, Estonia, Georgia, even Ukraine, it was actually like you can basically like jump technology in general because the infrastructure just wasn't there, so they're able to leapfrog it. That is a hard problem here in the US. You basically have to start with a blank piece of paper. And remember, for most laws here in general, like there's incentives for people to sort of like I live in SF, I've been there for 25 years. The reason SF is so bad, it's not a money issue. The reason SF is so bad is because it's a legal and regulatory issue of all the things that are stacked on top of each other. And there's, you know, as many people that want to change this, there's just as many people that don't want this to change, right? Versus like a place where, I mean, look, there was a revolution in Ukraine in 2014, and a good one, in my opinion, right? That brought in new ideas and new people to sort of clean this out. We don't have that here in the US, at least in my opinion, until probably not for another 4 to 8 years until most of the sort of like old people die. This sounds terrible, but like this is just, you know, this is unfortunately just the way it is in a democracy, right? You know, science advances one funeral at a time. That's just the reality. So it's just like, well, it's the same. So we have to wait another 4 more years until we sort of get some progress. This is just reality. It's demographics. Demographics is destiny. I don't like it, but it is what it is.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Going back to the topic of the day, exploring apps of the future and AI. So what do you think in terms of how apps will be developed in the future when right now AI is so powerful that you can create UI with it, you can create a completely new, like the whole screens, graphics, and so on. I already heard some people and companies create the whole games, like iPhone games from scratch, completely by AI. There's like nothing, there's no code written by a human or a picture drawn by a human. So you all developed some apps and like you or invested in apps, and you know how this has been done for the last 10, 20 years. So what are your opinions on the next like 5, 10 years in terms of AI affecting app development?
Yeah, I think that in general, like the process has been changing all the time, right? So I mean, there were a lot of silent revolutions that happened in the space of the apps creation, and like I mean, Atlassian also kind of like led a huge revolution that changed, like and like a lot of other developing tools that were impacting how apps are created. But I think that like, when it comes to AI and when it comes to spatial computing, it's basically, I think the biggest impact that's the increase of the complexity of the problems that we will be solving with the technology. That's basically people can use those apps on other platforms using other things as a medium to solve much bigger problems that exist today, right? And I think that is the most exciting part. What can we do in terms of improving longevity? What can we do if we can cure incurable diseases? What we can do when it comes to the to the hunger, right? There's a lot of things that AI can provide a solution to, but we're probably still not there yet. And I think that that's the most exciting part of the how the tech evolution helps to advance app creation.
I actually think what's going to happen is see some bifurcation, and you're starting to see that now with content, right? So using content is really content generation, whether it's content marketing, writing. You can sort of tell when something's been done by ChatGPT or it's like, versus sort of like, oh, there's a human who actually sort of like did this. And so I think you're going to see a lot of crap, right? A lot of crap ads, a lot of crap sort of like apps, a lot of crap technology. And I think, like, I actually think when I look back of sort of who are really like the best like product people, I don't know them personally, but just like who just come up with like really, really good products, it's like guys like Kevin Rose, right? Or big guys like Dave Morin, who just like, they have this eye. And so I do think it's going to be some element where there's AI creating this stuff, there's a human in the loop, right? There's a human sort of like, kind of like the Picasso sort of like playing around with it and adjusting it, versus just like letting the AI run and just build this thing. You know, it's very similar to the analogy I use with chess, right? It's going to be human with computer or human with AI building it. Because, you know, like I said, now we're all getting trained, right? You've heard this term called the uncanny valley, when you see sort of these like almost like perfect sort of like images, but they're weird. Humans have this like really good radar to figure out what's real and what is fake, even though we talk about deep fakes and things. But like, I do think our radar gets better with more data. And so you're going to start to see sort of this bifurcation of these type of products, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I can add is like, yeah, you still need an engineer to generate an app, right? So I have an example from my team. One of our engineers, he doesn't know any single bit of Swift, but he wants to like generate an app, just an experiment. So it took him some hours and some long conversation with ChatGPT, and he ran out of his bill, and etc. But he generated actually an app, but he is an engineer. He's a very experienced engineer himself. He just didn't know this particular technology, so it kind of made it easier for him to do it. But in general, you need to be an engineer right now to use all those tools. And what I can say also, like right now, it kind of accelerates teams a bit. So everyone in my team, they adopted Copilot already for quite some time. Some people are using ChatGPT. I'm using ChatGPT myself. Sometimes if I need to write like a quick script or something, I can, it's so much faster. It kind of accelerates me, but I still have to be an engineer because it hallucinates a lot. So I have to understand what it's doing, especially when dealing with critical stuff. I need to make sure that it's doing the right thing, and it's not always the case. There is no way to tell, right? So yeah, I mean, that's my take on this.
Yeah, I agree with Vlad, and like same for me. I use ChatGPT to write some simple scripts because like I don't write code for 5 years, but now I can do it, and I'm kind of happy because I do understand where to put it, how to run it, and for me it's like I'm very happy, and I can pick any language I want, like Python. Okay, let's do it. And what I see in our company, we also use Copilot, but it's just an assistant. It's just like a helper for you. Let's say our quality engineers, they just use it to understand the code software engineers just write, and for them it's like a huge help, and it speeds them up. So I don't see it that as for now it can replace software engineer, but like role of software engineer will definitely change, like as you said, like in 5 to 10 years, and more effort should be put on validation of our code. What's it's the output, because to write an like app, it's not just okay, let's create. It's more complicated. Just write this initial code. You need to ensure like security, reliability, all that kind of stuff, and it's not like, and systems usually are like really like big, and to like create it, it's complicated. It's very interconnected, and this is where you need human brain. I hope is still needed to build it. So role of software engineer will be more about like validation, making a decision, like creating this architecture of a solution, and preparation of the data and dealing with this stuff and to fit it to some, like, let's say, models, and all this compliance stuff, because each business, each application has this unique set of regulation, as we talked today about, and only human can still understand this. And ethics, because engineering ethics, I'm happy to say it's still the case, and only human could decide. So is it ethical to do or not? Because for large language models, it doesn't die, and so it doesn't know about all this stuff. So it could make any decisions they want. So it's ethics. It's not the case for them. So that's how I see it. It talks about software 3.0, like that kind of stuff, about this, why one agent that writes the whole code for you, but job of software engineer is to control, validate, and be this judge to it. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Can we get one more round of applause for our panelists, please? Thank y'all so much for being here. Have a great rest of y'all's day.